It's been 10 years since the attacks in New York City, and over these 10 years, Americans have progressively developed a war-footing mentality. In fact, where we're physically and psychologically and emotionally preparing for Islamic terrorist attacks in the United States of America. And this war footing is so pervasive that we at the United West see a disconnect between the condition of Americans related to Islamic terrorism and the level of discussion about national security issues on the presidential stage right now for those running for president. And we want to make sure, as a service to Americans, that we hold those who are interested in this high office accountable to understand essential national security concerns like the border issue, the nuclear issue with Iran, our long relationship with Israel, and the theocratic threat of Sharia Islam. So against that background, we are finding the candidates and then interviewing them and bringing you that information so you can make an informed decision on November 6, 2012. Recently, our investigative journalist team caught up with former Governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson. And we wanted to know what his grasp was and understanding was of the external threat, the greatest threat that the world faces right now, the nuclear threat from Iran. So I want you to take a look at former governor of a major state in the United States and a candidate for the most powerful man in the world. Take a look at this piece of video.
I don't think there's a nuclear threat from Iran, but we should be vigilant.
That's different than other candidates and their
right,
views.
no, I know that.
Why do you believe there's no nuclear threat from Iran?
Well, there's not. Number one, they haven't developed the product, and by the product, they haven't developed the warhead. And they're at best years away from being able to do that, and they're further away, much further away from a delivery system to be able to do that.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, there's no nuclear threat from Iran. What are those guys smoking out there in New Mexico? Maybe Mr. Johnson is more concerned with internal national security issues and terrorist threats than he is schooled on external threats like Iran. Certainly then, in 2008, the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terrorism funding case in the history of America, where Muslim charities were funneling money through the Holy Land Foundation to fund Hamas. This trial broke open the Muslim Brotherhood, had indictments all over the place, unindicted co-conspirators, put people in jail. Certainly the governor of a state of New Mexico and someone who wants to be the next president of the United States is aware of the Holy Land Foundation trial. Let's see how he responds to our reporter's question.
Have you heard of the Holy Land Foundation trial, sir?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so we have a presidential candidate who's not quite up to speed on the Iranian issue, doesn't have a handle on the Holy Land Foundation trial, largest terrorism funding case in the history of America. Maybe he's spending more time on the Muslim Brotherhood entities like ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, or NATE, North American Islamic Trust, or CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Listen carefully as our reporter poses this critical question to the potential leader of the free world.
The federal government has listed CARE, NATE, and ISNA as Muslim Brotherhood front groups and also strong ties tied to Hamas. President Obama has failed to prosecute these groups, and Speaker Gingrich came out the other day and said he would appoint an attorney general who would aggressively prosecute CARE, ISNA, and NATE. What is your position on that? Would you aggressively prosecute them?
You know, this is the first I've heard of it, and I probably should have, but as a result of what you're saying, I'll certainly get into it. Are you
familiar with CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. Is Mr. Johnson campaigning to be the editor of the New York Times or the President of the United States of America? You see, it's unconscionable that an individual who wants people to vote for him comes so unprepared on national security issues, specifically the Islamic threat to the United States of America, that he's unaware of these organizations and the Muslim Brotherhood and care of all groups, a devious, dangerous group that even the FBI has cut all ties with. You see, we at the United West want to hold our candidates accountable on national security issues. Anyone running for office, federal, state, or local, must, by a professional obligation to be a sworn officer of the United States of America, must understand the threat assessment, the threat analysis of Sharia-compliant Islam, number one. Number two, they must, candidates for higher office, must understand the fact that there is a kinetic jihad taking place with bombs and bullets to infuse an Islamic ideology globally with Sharia law implemented. But there's also a cultural jihad taking place in Europe, in the United States of America. And number three, the operational agents of the cultural jihad in the United States are the Muslim Brotherhood and all these other groups we're talking about. Those of you running for office, if you do not master this material, you are not fit to represent and defend Americans at this critical hour. So please, gentlemen and ladies, get up to speed on Islamic terrorism in the United States, on the border issue, on Iran, on our relationship to Israel. The free world depends on your skill in these matters.